This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for K-Yaks with Ken Ludmer. And today, Ken and I are going to be bantering back and forth a little bit. And I asked Ken the other day, how do we deal with everything that we're going through right now? Both sides of the fence seem to be very angry. And we've been taught as we've been growing up that anger doesn't solve issues, and we're supposed to have conversations and communicate with each other, but sometimes it's really difficult to do. So Ken, you've been around the world and back a couple of times. What do we do with all this anger, especially during this week of atonement when we're supposed to be asking for forgiveness and become brotherly? And right now, I don't feel very brotherly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't wear my talking hat today because I figured I'd have my therapist hat on today. And I have multiple reactions, typical of a therapist. One is that my therapist's response to anger is really, it's some part of you have to fix. If you're angry really at yourself somewhere, and you have to find it. And I've been pretty good at that. I have not been an angry person for a long time. But in this climate, taking off the therapy hat, the personal one is that I feel Trump has won. And it makes me mad because what he came to do, I think following Putin's orders, is to create this dichotomy, split in order to conquer, divide and conquer. And he has, from day one, all of a sudden, Democrats was a bad word. It wasn't just the other political party. It's a bad word. And liberal is a bad word. And every day it's the damn liberal Democrats, and we're going to get them, and we're going to get them. And most of the yahoos out there, all you have to say is the damn liberals. They're coming for your Bible. They're coming for your daughter. They're coming for, your guns. They're coming to take you to the left, and you're going to be a commie. And that mentality is, you see it everywhere now. It's out there. And I feel like I've succumbed to it. I'm now wanting to fight. I want to get out there and take them down. And I want to get out there and my better self knows just what you said. This is the time, for uniting. The old Jesse Jackson stuff. Get coalition, get everybody in. And that's been a Democratic Party line for a long time. But the Republicans don't go along. You can't get this brand of Republican Trump follower to do anything other than the Comandante tells him. It used to be more middle of the road Republicans. There was left Democrat leaning Republicans, and there was the staunch right wing conservative religious group. Now it seems like 90% of them are in that fold. And so here on a week of atonement, when I'm saying I got to get better at this, it gives me a problem when I say that, because I have to control the fact that, I'm really mad. The fact that he can steal another Supreme Court justice makes me, I first was mad at Ruth for dying. The poor lady had cancer for 3.5 years, and she fought like hell. How can you get mad at her? But, I was saying to her, dear God, why did you take her now? Couldn't you take her in January? Why take her now?
Right, exactly.
You threw everything into the mix now. I had one positive thought, that if they want to rush this thing through, it means they think he's going to lose. Because if they thought he was going to win, there would be no rush. He's going to be around, and we'll do it now. We can do it politically correct because, once he's reelected, he can take his time and do it.
Right.
But the fact that they're pushing it, they don't think he's going to win. So they got to get it in now. And I don't know if I want to make that trade. I want to get him out so bad, but do I have to trade Ruth for him? Do I have to? They're going to do it anyway. They're going to do the thing no matter what we do, how much money we send. They're going to do it. And today they got Romney saying he's going to take a vote. Now Romney is middle of the road, and he's got to get reelected too. And it's all the party line. I was hoping that maybe there was going to be a bigger split in the Republicans, that they would take the stance now, moral ground. Listen, we said 4 years ago, and that was 10 months before the election.
Right.
So now people are already voting in some places. Let the vote go, and we'll do the same thing. We have integrity. We did, we didn't want them to do it because we needed a new president. Well, let's wait till the votes are counted. But no, they're dirty dogs. They fight. McConnell fights any way he can.
Well,
So
I don't remember another time in my lifetime that I felt this adamantly angry at the president. I mean, I didn't really care for Nixon, but I don't remember being this angry because I knew that we would get through that period and times would change. And that's what history had shown us. But now I'm so angry because every day I hear something come out of his mouth that is different from the day before. And I find very educated people who are falling for his continuous lies. And so as I was sitting online for Rosh Hashanah services and thinking about, this is my beginning of repenting. Do I say that I forgive Donald Trump? I can't. And my teachings tell me if I can't, that I'm just as bad as he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes you wear Job's boots, I mean, you say, why me, God? Why us, God? Why are you? Well, you're supposed to suffer, We've been suffering forever, and so suffer some more, But I don't want to suffer some more. When is the light going to shine back? This man is killing us, literally now.
Yes.
Is killing us. It's not just that he's a stupid ass liar, a carnival barker, TV game show guy, a reality show guy. That's all he is. He's really a phony. So why would I get myself in a knot that I can't even sleep at night? Well, because he's trying to steal the elections, slow down the post office, slow down voting. He's trying to do everything he can. But hopefully the spirit of America is still there, that people know a phony when they see one, and the majority will. All the polls are still in our favor, that he's going to go. And I actually believe that they think he's going to go. That's why we're getting this current press. But how do you find your better self, your higher self? Forgive someone, forgive your enemy. He doesn't know any better, is the idea. And certainly that would apply. He thinks in his own demented mind that he's right and he's good for the country and he's saving it and he's making it greater and whiter. So he believes he's doing his job. All we can say to that is, okay, but we have another way. We have a different way. You can do your thing. We're going to do ours. I don't have to get out in the street and yell at you. I don't have to lose sleep at night. I just got to go to the ballot box. I got to vote. I got to get everybody I know and everybody who knows them to go vote.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the only solace I can take out of this, is that, I was really happy on New Year's. I thought, wow, New Year, this is going to be finally, we've had 4 years of this stuff. And then she dies on New Year. Oh, God, is that a bad omen, or is it just? I know the religious side of it. It's a good thing.
It's a good omen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned that firsthand 4 years ago. My mother passed away on uh, Erev Yom Kippur. And I remember the rabbi saying to me, your mother was blessed by leaving this earth today. And I said, how can you say that? You know, it's not a blessing. And he said, yes, it is, because God allowed her to live through the year. And so that's how we have to look at Rose. You
There's
know,
a completeness that you went her whole life, her whole year. She did both.
so going forward, you know, you've seen the pulse of America in the 60s. Was it this dynamic back then? I mean, I have to admit, I was that good little girl who stayed home and put my blinders on because my parents didn't want me out in the streets.
The parallels between Trump and Nixon are there. I mean, originally it wasn't Nixon; it was Johnson. Johnson was a real dichotomy. Here he was finishing what JFK started, you know, the equal rights, civil rights. He's doing the voting rights. He's doing all the good social programs that Kennedy wanted. And, you know, he was an old Texas boy and he could twist your ear and he could get it. You know, he was a political maneuverer and went across the aisle, both sides, gave them, you know, he was a traitor. I'll give you this. You want a dam in West Virginia? Well, you give me something for it, you know. That was the kind of guy he was. But he had a blind spot. They all did. Kennedy did too. He started with Quemoy and Matsu with the islands off of there. If they go, the domino theory was in play, and the communists are going to take over all of Southeast Asia. And so we had to go stop the bad communists from their own country. And he had a blind spot. And it passed through Johnson, and then with Nixon, it got insane because people had went through 65, 66, 67, and 68. Now the war is dragging on 3 or 4 years. And in 68, it's Tet. And you know you can't win war anymore. And here Nixon is just putting more troops. He's going to leave more people there. People are dying for no reason now. I think that's what spurned the street stuff, is that if you thought you could win the war, you know, you're part of American history, you go beat the bad guys and you come home. But now we knew we couldn't win. And they were still sending people there. And after 68, they were still dying. So the frustration was out on the streets, get out, and we really went out en masse.
Right.
And we were angry at the government because it was the government that was doing it. And what was the response? The response was Chicago 8th in the convention, and with Humphrey there, and they're beating the students and the protesters, beating protesters again out on the street. Go to Ohio, Kent State, they shot Allison Krauss. They shot a student, an unarmed student.
Right.
Our government is now shooting us. So it was, I mean, so far, Trump has just killed people with stupidity with his virus, but he hasn't gone out with a gun and shot anybody. I mean, he's come pretty close. He's pointed guns at people up in Oregon, but that's what did it. So the answer is yes. It was really bad. You felt you could address the government and they weren't hearing you. And their response to that, I mean, I was at the moratorium in Washington. I was on the streets, and they gassed us. They came at us with cops on horses and threw tear gas, and they did everything. They had billy clubs, they beat you, they did everything. We had to run for our lives. Literally, it was Dr. Zhivago. The horses lined up and they charged the crowd. Now, here's America, where you're allowed to protest, but the size of the protest was so big that they had to, quote, do what Trump would do, show strength. So now they're going to go out there and they're going to beat you. Well, you can imagine what the press was like. The liberal press was much bigger, much bigger. And the right wing was not as strong. It was, don't forget, Nixon got elected with the silent majority. He said they're out there. And he was right. They're out there. Trump has got the same people. They're literally the same group that he appeals to. That right wing, conservative, don't read a lot, but I know I'm right kind of guy. And so, how do you fight them? Well, we just chanted every day. And and Johnson finally resigned. Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids you killed today? Everywhere he went, you could see in his face. If you watch the videos of him as he gets out, his face gets more and more drawn. And by the time he quit, his mouth was hanging down. I mean, he was a beaten man. They just beat him down. And with Nixon, he almost pulled it off. You know, with Watergate, he got himself elected after Watergate. I mean, Watergate, he still got elected. So the parallels with Trump, he did all the criminal activities, but now you're going to get the courts and everybody to stand up. Well, my fear is that if we don't change the Senate, those are the people that go after the president. If the Senate gives him a pass, if he gets elected, he will not go to trial. Look at the impeachment. How far did that go? Because of political politics stopped it. Not that it was a question of ethics or right or wrong or whatever, but they were in power. So it's not just the presidency that you have to change. Is you have to change the Senate. You have to change the powerful Senate to get any of the laws to work.
Well, we
So
have to change the culture. I mean, we can't teach right and wrong and then not enforce it. Okay. You know, we're taught as little kids, you know, not to lie. And if you lie, you get punished for it. And yet you grow up and then you see so many people around you lying. I'll
yeah,
never forget, I had a science teacher and I ended up calling him a liar because in the science class, he renamed everything. So, like, if you were looking at a compound, he may have said it was called a mistake. If you were looking at an animal, let's say a cow, he would say, that's a chair. And I said to him one day, I don't understand this. And he goes, I want you to learn. And it shouldn't be by everything that you've known before. You need to start from this point forward. And I was very upset. I went home and I said to my parents, you know, my teacher's lying. He says, this is not a cow, it's a chair. And this is not a compound, it's something else. And so my parents came to school because I was going to be expelled for calling a teacher a liar. I didn't understand what he was trying to teach us. He was
right,
trying to open our minds to
right.
what
How
was,
do you know it's a cow? You
yeah.
know?
And so it was,
Somebody called it a cow? Yeah.
so when we sat down with this teacher and we talked about it, I started to understand better. And that's the problem that we have today, that people talk, but they don't always make themselves understandable. And so we think they're lying or we just don't trust them. And we have to learn to communicate better.
Yeah, I think with the current president, I think he knows when he's lying. I think other times he doesn't know when he's stupid. When he's just being stupid and ill-informed, you know, and he'll, oh, did you know Ireland is not part of England? You know, I mean, everybody knows that. You know, like you can see stuff is lack of education. We can't even pronounce some countries. You can't even pronounce the right word. I mean, you see the lack of education. You see the lack of sophistication with him, and I don't blame him for that. I don't. That's not his fault. That is people let him get away with. He was able to be corrupt and get into schools he didn't belong. He was able to use his father's money and get people to take tests for him and get by and all that stuff. That's just the world that he grew up in. I can't blame him for that. That's the people around him that permitted this to happen. I do blame him when he knows that coronavirus is a killer and he gets out there and says, it'll go away. It's magic. That to me is criminally liable, and that gets to me. My next book, I think, is going to be about teaching children in the age of Trump, which, when you think about it, is like, what do you tell your children? Look at the problem he gives you trying to raise a child. You're supposed to respect elders. You're supposed to look up to and salute the president. He's supposed to represent all of us. Well, how do you tell a kid, well, he doesn't represent all of us. He doesn't even represent you. And he tells what these people want to hear, not what we need to hear. So he's lying to us, but he's not lying to them. To them, it's the truth. So there's the point your teacher was making. It depends on your perspective. It depends on
Yep.
on what you're looking at. To me, I want to get past the lying. I want to get past the anger. I want to get past all of the stuff that stirs us up. I just want to put a cover on it and say, like everything in life, it doesn't last forever. This was the time of Trump, and now we have to go back to where fact is a fact. There's no such thing as an alternate fact. It's either a fact or it's not a fact. It's either right or it's wrong. And if it's in the middle, then there's a debate and you talk about it. You don't just authoritarianly say it's right and then call the person a name who says, can you define that for me? And that's what he does. So to explain it to kids is very, very complicated because they will find something in you that you said that you didn't mean. And they'll say, you're just like him. I don't know if I can trust you. I know kids, there's the one chapter in Searching for It where I say kids know it. Where a kid will say, oh, she was just saying that. She didn't really mean that. My mother always says that because she's a mom. She has to say that. That's really not what she means. And my father always has to back my mother, but I see it in his eyes that he's really not agreeing with her, but he's just saying that. And so kids know on an intuitive level when the truth isn't being told. And so your job is don't get caught in that dilemma. Most parents are afraid of telling the kids the truth. And I always encourage them, no. Bite the bullet, tell them the truth. Because at least you're rewarding their perceptibility, that they saw something. You weren't telling the truth, were you, Daddy? No, I wasn't, but I felt I had to say that to you. I didn't know if you were old enough to hear. The world is a tough place out there. When you're a kid, you want to be able to still believe in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, and you want to be able to, the world is a good place. Well, as you get older, and you find out more about it, it's not always such a good place. So I got caught in trying to make the world seem better for you. But you were right. I wasn't telling you the truth. And I used to preach that all the time. And parents got stronger with their kids. And actually, it makes the relationship better because the kids feel rewarded. The parent is acknowledging that you're smart, you see through things. And that's a good trait. That's something you're going to have to learn how to perfect.
So you have a little grandson, and right now he's a very innocent little child. But pretty soon he's going to start talking and getting into things. So how do you teach him right from wrong?
Well, I think right from wrong in the beginning is always about safety and danger. If you're on the top of a glass table and it's up 3 feet, You can't just walk off the edge. You have to know that you're going to fall and hurt yourself. And if you see a socket and you want to play with the metal knife and stick it in it, you know that it's wrong. So there's guideposts and guidelines. Like, go around the house, childproof your house. Tell them why you're doing everything you're doing. You have to explain danger. And then danger is outside. Oh, you want to play ball? But what if the ball bounces into the street? You don't just run out after it. The world is, there's a car out there and he could hurt you. And that light means something. Those colors mean something. That green one says you can go, that red one says you can't. And your job is to understand what the orange one is. Because the orange one says you sort of can go. But you have to figure out why you can go or why you can't. And there's your teaching. That's where the parents jump in. So I think it's a gradual process that goes from protection and danger to more of the nuances between as you socialize and you now become part of a group. It's not just because you want to be first. You're in a group of 10 kids, and 10 kids want to be first.
Right.
So if you were first yesterday, you got 9 more days before you're first again. And that's the lesson. That's the sociability lesson, is learning to share and learning to be part of a group. And you may join that group and you may be fighting to be the leader of that group, but eventually maybe there might be another group that you're going to have to fight, and that's called sports. And now you might be the leader or not the leader, but at least you're on the team. You're part of something now. And that team plays against the other team. Well, maybe at that point you find out that all of those different teams, they're still in the same league. And there's another league. So the world gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and your part in it is you're still one guy on a team, but you're now part of a bigger and bigger and bigger world. And that's the idea of community. It starts in your house, and it goes to your neighbor, and then it goes to all the neighbors, and then it goes to all the people that aren't your neighbors. So if that answers the question, that's the way I go about it.
Well, and it's really important because I know I parented much differently than my parents did, um, but I was bringing up my boys in a different time. Um, but I never felt that it was that important to be my child's friend when they were young. I
Right.
was still mom. I was still, you
Right.
know, the one that was guiding them through there. I was their mentor. Um, Now that they are young adults, um, I can shift that. I don't have to be
Right.
the one telling them what to do, asking them if they're good or bad. Okay. But I'm there still for them. Whereas I was brought up, and I was always the child. And even when my mother lay dying at 96 and a half years old, and I was 66 and a half years old, I was still the child. Um,
Right.
and, that's something that we need to change in our society, uh, because we need, like you said, we need to be one huge community. We need to be there for each other, and we evolve.
Yeah. I never was a fan of parents who said they wanted to be their child's friend. I saw it mostly uh, with dads who wanted to hang out with their son's friends. Or I saw it with moms with teenage girls dressing like their teenage girl. I always thought that's a classic mistake. That's an abandonment of your true role. You're their guider, you're their teacher, you're their authority figure, you're not their friend. You want to talk to your friends, go talk to your friends. And when you come back home, I'll then tell you if your friends are right or not. Because I know more than your friends. And I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm just saying I'm older and more experienced, and that's why you listen to me. You listen to me because I have age, wisdom, and experience, that your friends don't have. So if you want somebody to maybe just to agree with you or feel bad about that your dad doesn't agree with you, then you talk to your friends. But I'm not your friend. I'm your father. And I have a different role and a different responsibility. And especially for the mothers, stop trying to be young to hang out with your kid and try to be a symbiotic sack. You're not. Those days are over. She left the sack. She's out. Now help her be free.
Yeah.
Help her get out there and get. What's the goal of parenting? Autonomy. You teach them to not need you. You've successfully raised a child when they can think as you do or see the world through your eyes and then maybe see it better than you saw it because
Absolutely.
they see it clearer. You're to help them get to a stage where they don't need you to cross the street anymore. They don't need you to know what's right and wrong, what's good for you and what's not good for you. You learn that for yourself. And so parents who teach that and back it up with some really tough nights where you want to go rescue them from their problem and you want to stop them from having their problem, but you realize, no, that's part of the learning process. You have to learn from your mistakes. And to do that, you got to make mistakes. Hopefully you just don't make the real big ones.
So what I'm hearing is parenting is somewhat like being a president, a senator, a congressman, a mayor, because you can share a vision, but we all have to interpret it through our own learning as well.
Right.
You're giving us something there, but we don't have to agree 100%.
Right.
We may be a little wiser, be able to share something back.
Yeah.
But what has happened to, these parents who now have become political people who aren't representing and aren't listening?
Right.
How can we change that?
Well, I mean, it's a tough one because you're talking about education. You're talking about being able to see beyond what your own needs are. As long as your own needs are satisfied, you'll stop looking. But what I think really works with kids is you want them on their own to emulate what you think and what you are. If you're kind and generous and you're giving, then you don't have to tell kids to be that way. You just do it. And then they can be proud of you because they see that you're kind and generous and you're helping others and that people, you're well respected, liked, appreciated, etc. You have some community standing. That in it itself, I want to be like my dad. My dad's a well-liked guy. My dad is funny. My dad is human. My dad is this, but that. My mom is everything to me. She's my provider. She's my protector. She's my soul that I can talk to, and she tells me when I'm wrong. So if parents are not doing that, they're not serving themselves, they're not serving their kids, they're not serving their community. You can just see how it all interplays with one another. That's why I tried in my career to prevent problems rather than wait till they came to the office with problems. The earlier you could intervene into a parental system and teach parents better communication with their kids and better role modeling, you prevented problems. And what you're talking about is who's going to tell them that their way is wrong? Look at a job that is. But yet, we've done it. We have educated against prejudice for maybe we're not where we're supposed to be after 150 years or 160 years. But we have stopped a lot of people from thinking the way they used to think.
Right.
And they think differently now. I mean, I remember when I was a child and the Cubans came to Union City, and everybody was, oh, they're dirty and they live in 10 people to a room and these are terrible people. Watch out, they're going to steal and they're going to buy and they're going to do this. All bad stuff out of ignorance and fear. And it turned out that the people that they were calling these names were middle-class political refugees from Cuba who had had their businesses stolen by Castro and their land taken away, et cetera, et cetera. They were just like the people, or even one step higher than the people who were calling them names. And now you come back 60 years later, and that community is thriving. There's a whole Spanish community. And guess who the landlords are? The Cubans, you know, and nobody's got any problem with them anymore, you know. And so I look at that and I say, well, that's my neighborhood. I watched that change over 60 years, where people now, the Colombians are there, and the Guatemalans are there, and the Mexicans are there, and the Argentinian. Everybody's got their own restaurant, and it's like nobody has a problem with a different culture. And in this particular space, you have about 14 different Spanish countries all living together, and fair competition. Who can make the best burrito, and who can make who has the best vegetable store and stuff like that. So I have seen prejudice go away. I have seen it educated, and I certainly have done my share through all the years of talking to people when I heard them have, they and them and you guys, and I would make them define it. I would make them tell me about what they know personally. Or is this just something they're repeating? Did they hear it somewhere? Or is that a value? Have they ever questioned it? You go to college, you question everything. You question even what you were taught in high school. Because sometimes in college, they don't teach you the same thing they taught you in high school.
Exactly.
And then in graduate school, they teach you nothing like you were taught in high school and college. So, there's levels and levels of questioning, which I think is good. One of the differences that I've seen with the presidents in the last two that we had is that Obama was elitely educated, well-spoken, refined, factual, generous, kind, open. He role modeled what a president is supposed to be. And it was easy teaching then to be like him. Although he's the black guy, well, he's a lot better than all these other guys that have come along. I mean, and look at how elegant his wife is, and educated and smart. Look at these great kids he's got, and and there's family with dogs and everything. And you see the difference now in that the education level of the presidency, the sophistication level of just grasping concepts is not there. And so if you just think he's great and you get out and you put on your MAGA hat and you jump up and down, you're no longer questioning. You're now a follower, a believer. You're in the Kool-Aid pack. And that's really hard. It's part of the scary stuff.
Well, when I went to college, my first two roommates, I had a young girl from a small town in Michigan who was raised basically by her aunts who were nuns. So she had never met a Jewish person before. My third roommate was a Black young girl who came from the inner city of Detroit, and her mother worked for a Jewish doctor. Her mother was a nurse. And the first night as I'm lying in my bunk, my Catholic roommate comes over thinking I'm asleep, and she's touching my head. And I have no idea what's going on.
Looking for the horns?
She was looking for my horns because that's what she was taught. Jewish people had horns. And when she couldn't find them, she woke up our other roommate and said to the roommate, "Don't Jewish people have horns?" And then I woke up because they were both laughing. And we became the best of friends, all three of us.
Nice.
And she was very upset with her aunts. And when she went home for the first break, she said, "You lied to me. Jewish people don't have horns." And they said, "Well, that's what we've been taught." And that's sort of scary. But it opened up a whole world to the three of us because we started conversations that I don't think we would have had
Yeah.
any other time. Um, and that made me realize that we are all alike. I don't care
Yeah.
what country you're from.
Yeah.
Um, my grandparents came from Russia. Did that mean they weren't good people? No, they migrated from Russia. They had a very hard time getting over to the United States, but they made a life and raised their children, and their children raised their children.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping as we go forward, we can let loose some of this angst that we have, and make some good changes.
I'm just enthralled by the amount of similarity between you and me and our backgrounds, our mother and having the whole issues. And then, I mean, in the book I wrote about, looking for horns
Yeah.
in Tulsa. I mean, that was a real story. I mean, here's a 38-year-old woman feeling the top of my head because, I was the first Jew person she ever met, and and I had to have horns because she told them, us dirty, and stealing and can't trust them, take her money and everything. You know, I just realized, oh my God, how far am I from New York? I mean, how far am I from New York? I'm in a world where I got adults who are raising kids, are really, they have a belief system that I'm the devil. I mean, really, holy heavens. Is there more like her? I guess I guess, they're more like you out here, I mean, oh my
Well, I think it's time for all of us to get rid of the old wives' tales that we've been told. Um, they can be something that we share as just that, a tale, but let's find the truth. And let's know that we can make mistakes, but we must learn from them. And I
And
think,
now in the pandemic, I think communication has been fostered. You can't go out and on the street corner and do what you normally would do, and you can't go to the PTA meeting, and you can't even go to shul, but you certainly can do what we're doing. You know,
absolutely.
I don't know if we would have found one another if we didn't have the pandemic, if we didn't have all this Zooming stuff, because this is our need to communicate with one another.
Absolutely.
And it really works. I mean, you get to know people and you get to spread out and stuff like that. I'm looking for personally for us in this show is that when we have a Zoom audience.
Absolutely. That would be great.
Yeah, and because I work best with that. I could, if we had people that were watching live, and you had a way to be able to let them speak one at a time, because then we could have this therapy discussions, we could have parenting discussions, we could have a lot of teaching going on through Zoom. And people could call in with their questions about therapy or call in with a problem, and we could maybe have a resource bank where we refer them to certain knowledge groups that we know of. We could have a whole resource base. And so let's think about that, because I think
Well,
that
I
that
think,
could be something that is, it's like, TED Talks, but it's interactive. You're
right.
not just listening. The whole deal is the audience has to participate.
Well, we need our listeners to contact us at newclevelandradio@gmail.com. And we can work that in very easily. Uh, People will get the code to come into the Zoom meeting, and
Absolutely.
we will pull them in one at a time, and so that we're not talking all over each other, which
Well,
we,
you control that, don't you?
We can
You
control
who
that,
can,
absolutely. But
can
I
we
know,
have their mics off and then turn on a mic,
absolutely,
or you could hear if somebody's
right.
calling?
So, please
I mean, moderators do it all the time. I mean, people who work in a live theater and they take questions from the audience. You got a guy running around with a mic,
yep.
and he puts them on, and you ask your question, and then we're gonna follow up panels and stuff. I'm looking forward to doing more of that kind of stuff.
Well, it's up to our listeners to contact us. I know a few people who probably would be interested in being part of this. So we will get that moving.
Yeah, I'd like to be part of other people's show as well, just as having an opinion, having an idea, just being able, as someone who's done this my whole career, be able to communicate effectively with people, get your idea across, hear what their issue is, and respond.
Uh, I think we've got some good ideas coming forward. Um, with the election coming up, everybody needs to get out and vote. I'm taking my first online training to be part of the group that reaches out to individuals by phone calls and text messages. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do, I'm going to
We've
do
been
my
printing up labels this week. She's got a site that you mail to one person, and you want to make sure that they've been identified
right.
as a potential supporter. They may be an independent, and so we're trying to use our stamps wisely. And target people that might make a difference. Like, do you know that this is you're a senior? Do you know that you need to know about the seniors? Blah 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 blah, and on you go. In terms of that, you want to keep your Medicare, you want insurance, you want to have prescription costs. Where's the health plan you were promised?
And you don't want your social security taken away from you because the majority of us, that's what we're trying
Yeah,
to
well, we got to build a wall. So you
do.
don't understand. We need a wall. We don't. You don't need your pills and medication. You don't need the ride to the clinic. We need a wall. That's because those people are going to come and steal your chair.
Well, we will be back again next week, and maybe you'll be wearing your hat next week.
Yeah, I might have a guest. I'll let you know. I have someone lined up next week, and let you know as soon as I hear back.
Sounds good. Well, everybody take care, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, Karen. Bye, everyone.